Up next, Authentically Detroit welcomes the executive director of Umoja Debate League, Jerjuan Howard, to discuss his trip to Ghana with 15 Detroit students. But first, this week's hot take. Brian and Alexis Cole launched a new book, The Willingness to Change, featuring forward by New York Times bestselling authors Kev on Stage and Mrs. Kev on Stage. Keep it locked. Authentically Detroit starts after these messages.
Have you always dreamed of being on the airwaves? Well, the Detroit Eastside Engaged Podcast Network, or DEEP for short, is here to make that dream a reality. Located inside the Stoudemire, the DEEP Network offers studio space and production staff to help get your podcast idea off the ground. Doesn't take a whole lot of work to get started. Just visit the Authentically Detroit page at ecn-detroit.org or call Sarah at 313-948-0344.
Hey, y'all, it's Orlando. We just want to let you know that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show.
Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from Detroit's East Side at the Stoudemire inside of Eastside Community Network headquarters. I am Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Davidson.
We want to thank you so much for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people in the city of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. This week, we are proud to host three very special guests. First up, for Hot Takes, we have renowned relationship influencers and content creators, Brian and Alexis Cole. Then we will have the executive director of the Umoja Debate League, Jerjuan Howard, here to discuss his trip to Ghana with 15 Detroit students. Alexis and Brian, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you. It is nice to be here. Thank you so much.
I know we not Kev on Stage and them because I know y'all been on their podcast and they got millions of followers and viewers. But, you know, I think we do all right for the city of Detroit. Oh, my goodness.
We are so honored to be here.
Welcome to the pod.
So honored to be here. Thankful that, you know, we got the call from Orlando and said, you know.
We made it, mama.
We made it. We made it. I was like, wow, finally.
What? Y'all stop. Y'all matching and y'all wasn't even trying to match. Y'all look good. Y'all look good in here.
You know, I had to represent because, you know, Orlando looks really nice all the time. You know, he stay ready. So, I got to get ready.
Donna Davidson, how are you? Happy Monday.
Oh, thank you.
I can hear you chewing gum in the microphone.
Okay. I had a weekend with my grandchildren, and I'm recovering from that. So, yeah.
A recovering granny.
Well, listen, it's a lot of work, and I forget little things like always have a stroller on hand. That a mother would never make that mistake.
So you were carrying...
as a mother, we make those mistakes.
Not me. Kevin was carrying
a
baby on his
Kevin.
shoulders. And yeah, that was a lot. Just, you know, trying to arrange events. But it's so wonderful watching them grow up. The thing about children is they change so quickly. And my schedule, Kevin's schedule, we're so busy that we don't always get to spend a lot of time. So we had a lot of time to spend with them this past weekend. And
you look
watching
refreshed.
Them with each other. I know, right? Because they make you young again. But even though you're tired, you know, just watching them, and they're so cute, you know. And it was really great. And the connection, you know, was just really great. So I'm happy Monday. It was a good weekend, although very tiring. And I'm happy to be here and talking
to a
young couple who has figured out how to make relationships work, I have to say.
Right.
Ooh, figured out. That's a lofty phrase right there.
I'm going to say you figured it out so people will buy your book, but...
Amen.
Donna, I haven't seen you since Detroit Playlist Live.
Oh, my goodness. That was so much fun.
How was the event?
Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I think that it's always great. I love music. Mm-hmm. It's always fun with Orlando and Kari to do something new and different. And so, you know, I had this week, I had, what is her name? I should remember her name.
You had Victoria
Monet, right.
Donna, you hit.
Okay.
You hit to Victoria.
I had Victoria Monet, and it was kind of fun because it's forcing me to get to know younger artists. Somehow they decided that old school would be the new school, had selected new school artists, and I wanted to do something that have an artist that really spoke to me in some way, and Victoria Monet does. She's like a younger version of a Chaka, a younger version of a woman.
Oh, and you
who,
love Chaka Khan.
You know I do, because when I was growing up, she was like this empowered woman. She was never one to
free.
be
Fire.
I always loved free women, and that's who Victoria Monet represents to me. Somebody who can. You know, she talks about being a female pimp. I don't know about that whole thing, but when she has Cadillac and I got it from my mom or I get it from my mama, that resonates. And then Hollywood, where she was actually writing and performing with Earth, Wind, and Fire, one of the best bands in the history of music, was great.
It is. It is. I so enjoy sitting next to you and learning about your love and affinity for Victoria. Over the weekend, I was on the west side of the state. I went to the Frederick Myers Gardens in Grand Rapids. So remember the conversation we were having the other week about exploring more of our great state and stop being scared to go places? Because I'd be scared. I do. I'd be scared. I'm like, I don't know. Are they friendly to us in these parts? But the west side of the state, Kent County, is where I spent my summers growing up in Grand Rapids. And so it was a lot of fun, a lot of nature. It was a sculpture park, different kinds of, they had tropical gardens, carnivorous gardens. And, you know, it was really, really nice. And I was glad that I did. It was a quick little turnaround trip. I want to go somewhere else. I want to go, I want to do more. Let's go to, I don't know. Let's go to
Mackinac.
I was going to say, Lexi went to Mackinac a couple weeks ago.
We go to Mackinac all the time.
They have a new, I'm just giving a pub, but they have a new resort there called Stonecliff Inn. It is beautiful.
Stonecliff is beautiful.
Yes.
It's actually
the resort of, what is it? Resort
I have to get over my Mackinac hate. I just don't.
You know, everything in
Mackinac
Mackinac is so expensive. And I went, actually, when I got married.
Though.
It is.
When Kevin and I got married, we went there for our honeymoon. We got married in 2020, so you couldn't go many places. We weren't getting on a plane, so it was within driving distance. And I've enjoyed spending time there. But there's other parts of the state I also want to see in the UP. Some of the places that are just beautiful.
I want to go to Sagatuck.
Yes.
I want to see Sagatuck. We'll talk more about our Michigan stuff later. But we have Brian and Alexis Cole here, and they are launching a new book, The Willingness to Change, featuring a foreword by New York Times bestselling authors Kev on Stage and Mrs. Kev on Stage. So let me just break this down for y'all, and then we're going to get into our questions and conversation with the Cole life, the Coles. Relationship influencers, podcasters, and authors Brian and Alexis Cole proudly announced the release of their transformative new book, The Willingness to Change, which has already garnered major attention with a foreword by New York Times bestselling authors Kev on Stage and Mrs. Kev on Stage. With their signature blend of authenticity and faith-based insight, the Coles deliver a practical guide to navigating the complexities of marriage and committed relationships by embracing change as a critical component for growth. In The Willingness to Change, the Coles share their personal journey through the highs and lows of marriage, candidly revealing their struggles with infertility, communication, and healing. Backed by years of research and consultations with relationship therapists, they challenge the conventional wisdom that change compromises one's identity. Instead, they demonstrate how the willingness to evolve both individually and as a couple is essential to fostering a healthy and enduring relationship. Here's the quote: "Marriage isn't a fairy tale. It's a labor of love," says Brian Cole. "We've learned that the willingness to change both individually and together is key to overcoming the obstacles that couples inevitably face." The Coles have amassed a significant social media following with over 400,000 followers on TikTok and more than 300,000 followers on Instagram, where they share relatable and inspirational content. Their honest discussions on topics like IVF, mental health, and interracial marriage have resonated deeply with their audience, creating a community of couples, he's trying to say, seeking to improve their relationships through vulnerability, faith, and practical action. The book is filled with tools, exercises, and guided reflections designed to help couples confront destructive patterns, open honest dialogues, and create a roadmap for relational healing and growth. Wowzers.
I know, right?
I'm sitting here reading this. I'm like, these are my friends. I think I know these people. Let me tell you, it's so funny. And I want you to get to your questions. But I ended up, so they are legit famous, okay?
Oh, my goodness.
I ended up in one of their videos, an old picture of me and Brian somewhere back in the day. I think I only saw it back in college. And so my phone literally started going at least a few times now. out the year now, but before it was crazy. But a few times out there, people come up to me and like, you know the Coles? Oh my God, we love the Coles. And I'm like, at first I didn't know who they were talking about. Somebody had to show me the video. I'm like, oh yeah, I know them. Yeah. So y'all,
Yes.
we're honored that you are gracing us
goodness.
with your presence. And thank you for the book.
I watch Orlando just work, and y'all, that is like my brother. Like he would come over our house, my whole family. And when I mean my whole family knows him. And so when
They're
I
my
see
family.
you're right.
They're my
and
family.
Both, yes, both. And so when I see, I was listening to you talk. I was like, go Orlando.
And hold on, let's not just bypass the fact that Orlando married Lexi's brother and his wife
Yes.
I did.
a month ago.
I
Yes.
did. I
Yes.
performed that wedding. It was so much fun.
Yes, it was
so
beautiful.
Yeah, we're family. We are. We are.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, I'm excited by your book, and I'm going to tell you why. I feel as though a lot of people have never experienced healthy relationships, and we don't do a whole lot of feeding into healthy relationships. We've done a whole lot of, popularizing terms like gaslighting and all of these other kinds of things. Narcissism.
Yes. That is the word, popularizing.
Right. But, and indeed there are narcissists, but everybody you don't get along with does not have a character disorder, right? And every relationship that breaks up is not based on character flaws. Sometimes it's just based on the fact that many of us have never been told how to be in a healthy relationship. As I said before the show started, being a marriage veteran and having, listen, 3 times, is the charm, right? But having been through that, there's things I know now in my 3rd marriage I wish I'd known when I was younger. And one of the exciting things before we started talking was this idea that it's not just about how to work on your marriage, but actually how to select the right mate.
Yes.
And so for that, I really want to dig into that, but before we dig into that, can you talk about how you got together and what led you to write this book?
Well, you go.
The how we got together part is we're gonna commercialize that very long story into a 30-second blip. Orlando was there. Basically, long story short, one of my best friends was dating one of Lexi's best friends. We met through basically mutual connection. We had no interest in each other whatsoever. Just started to develop a friendship, I would say probably over the course of a year. Mm-hmm. And truly friendship, like talking to each other about the dates we were going on, like really just kicking it. And at some point, I don't know how, but we were in a park at my campus and her head landed on my lap and I was like, oh my God, I think I like this. And do I like her? Does she feel the same? And then she did it again. I was like, oh my God. And it just started to develop into, oh wow, we actually like each other. And so we started dated for about 4 years.
4 years.
And we've been married for over 9.
Wow. How old were you when you started dating?
18?
18.
19. We were 19.
Yeah, 18 when we
dating
started.
19.
Yeah, 18 we were friends. Then 19 we started dating.
Wow. So, a lot of those relationships when you turn 19 don't always work out. And part of this, because when you turn 19, you don't quite know who you are. And when you figure out who you are, you begin changing whether you're willing or not.
Absolutely.
And the question is, are you willing to change together?
Yeah.
So can you talk about your journey to changing together and how you understood you needed to write a book?
So the reason, and Orlando will remember this, the reason why we started The Willingness to Change, why we wanted to call it The Willingness to Change, actually started from the hard conversations that Brian and I had when we were dating. You cannot see, audience, but Brian and I are black and white. And we had a lot of conversations, heavy conversations about race. And it was to the point where Brian had to make a decision. And he said this in one of our podcasts and on YouTube, was the hard thing that people have to realize when it comes to really hard conversations like race is you have to question everything that I learned, over the past 20 years, 30 years. Is that wrong? And am I okay with being wrong and actually changing my thought process, changing my mental model? And Brian actually did so much work to empathize and just really connect and understand that I may not fully understand, but I am here to learn and change because what I learned all these years was wrong. And so it's not growing because you can grow wrong. And that's what was happening. Willingness to change means that I have to shift my whole entire mental model on something and actually make a commitment to go a completely opposite direction.
Wow.
And that's what really started us to have a guide of the willingness to change. We purposely didn't call it the willingness to grow because, like we said, you can grow wrong.
All right. I think that's wonderful. Now, I imagine that there's also people, women and men, who've been raised with a lot of preconceptions and stereotypes about each other, right? Like,
yes.
Men are like this, women are like this, and now you all are together, and you got to change that too, right? So that you can be a better partner to somebody who, isn't like you. Even if you are the same ethnicity and background. Can you talk a little bit about how that's impacted you, Brian?
I think to Lexi's point, race is just one of those conversations that had to happen, right? When you talk about merging two human lives together, there's always going to be multiple conversations that have to happen, multiple conflicting issues. And we're even recently just reading a book that talks about some issues will just be perpetual in your marriage that may not ever have a solution because people think differently, they operate differently, their priorities are different. What you can do, though, is come together and understand how do we get on the same page at least? How do we understand one another and create boundaries with our expectations? Because we come into those relationships with expectations of what my life should look like, of what my life should look like with her or her with me. And those expectations get blown out of the water because guess what? You can't control your partner, right? And so coming into this, there was give and take with our relationship. And we just have to, number one, learn how to understand one another and what that looks like to do that in a healthy way. And when we get to the point of understanding and our hearts are connected, then it no longer becomes, I want to prove that I'm right or get you on my side. Just, I want to love you the right way. I want to give you what I can in a way that you'll receive it the right way. And it requires a lot of deep, difficult work. And for me, it was, I think that conversation about race, when we say that conversation, it was like years of conversation.
Multiple conversations.
Experiences and everything. There was more challenge that I didn't even understand of what that process of change looked like because I also then have to admit to myself, if I'm willing to say that I was wrong, then I also have to deal with my shame from how I've been thinking the past 30 years or 25 or however many it was, and the guilt of how I've been thinking, and then the weight of what society now actually looks like with this new lens and perspective. And a lot of those things are difficult to kind of work through when you're just confronted with it all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's why they're banning books in Florida, right? Because people have to work through this. A question about that, though, because you're changing, right? And you've come from a family of people who thought like you used to think, and now you're changing. How does that impact your familiar relationships? And I would imagine that might even impact the way they feel about Alexis, because now you're starting to think like her.
Alexis. Oh, yeah.
Well,
but
in some families, that becomes
it doesn't.
An issue.
But I think the question is, when one begins to take this journey for change, you sort of inadvertently take those who are closest to you on a journey as well.
Yes.
That's true.
And what was that like for your family?
Yeah.
There's two families and two very different, distinct experiences. One was my extended family, which was very difficult, to the point where there was an experience that we had where I had to choose to either leave and protect my wife emotionally because she walked out because she was afraid for her life, literally, and stay there and fight my family physically, because it was at that point where it got so bad and so many deeply racist things were being said, and it was overt and it was aggressive, physically aggressive. And that was one side that we had to deal with. And how do I posture myself to protect and not blur those lines? Because when you get married, the Bible talks about cleave to your wife. So I was like, this is me and she is me and we are the same. So no other family member is going to come in between us. At the end of the day, I had to make a very hard line stance on that she is the most important. And I will not be afraid to hurt relationships if I have to protect her. My immediate family is a very different story. They may have been ignorant and naive to things, but the willingness to learn and empathize and understand was always there. It was just a similar process that they had to go on to me, right? Whether they wanted to or not, she's now a part of the family, and we now have to have certain conversations when certain things are said.
And they were so and I feel like our family it's an anomaly because they were so willing. They went to classes on culture diversity. Like they
Well, I was
really
getting ready
wanted to change.
I was getting ready to ask this question about, you guys are talking about the inner work that both of you have had to do. Talk to us a little bit about what that looked like. Were you doing this work by yourself? Were y'all talking to professional therapists? I mean, how did this go?
I will say, with the work that we did, that was during dating, and we did a lot of conversations with just counselors, therapists. Like, we talked about that. As we got to marriage, we absolutely talked to not even want to say counselor, we talked to a therapist. And the race situation was before we got married, because I feel like that's something that you should figure out before you get married.
No, we made a conscious decision. We said we will not get married until we're on the same page with this one.
Yeah,
It took you about 4 years, right?
It took
I'm just joking. I'm sorry.
but that's the real. It took us not 4 years, but it took us.
But the beauty of it is, since then, we have been on the same page with everything.
Oh,
this
you
is
have
absolutely
to.
beautiful. So I just want to say this. Brian's family is a family that has demonstrated willingness to change, but partly because they raised him. And so that's really, really fortunate. But you have a guidebook, right, for other family members.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I'm thinking that sometimes when people change, the people closest to them resist that change.
100%.
Yes.
And have you worked with other couples who have encountered that? And how have you helped them through those humps?
So did you want to go? Okay. So what we've done, we've not only had a conversation even before this journal about change and reading books. Like, one of our favorite authors is John Gottman, a great psychologist that talks about marriages and talks about conflict and how to get through conflict. So we talked to other couples about how to handle hard moments, hard things. Because I think that outside of selecting the right person, I think the biggest thing is realizing that marriage is not easy. Marriage is not a cakewalk. And so understanding, how do I have these hard conversations and not feel like I'm about to leave my spouse? Part of the things that we talk about is dreams and conflict. Everybody has expectations when they go into a marriage, whether it's from how they were raised as kids, whether it's their friends, whether it's family members. Everybody has expectations of when they go into marriage.
And are these and most of the times these expectations aren't really spoken. They're just intrinsic.
Yes.
Okay.
They're subconscious.
You should be able to read my mind.
That
Should be able to, right?
Through osmosis, right?
Yes.
So, like, unspoken expectations can't really be expectations at all. They're assumptions, right? They become
assumptions.
Yeah, that you put on somebody else, and you get mad when they don't meet it. That's crazy.
And also, expectations and needs are different things, because sometimes when you have an expectation, you may think that your expectation is like, I want this person to come home at 6:00 every night. And is that a need for you? Like, will you get divorced over that? Like, that's something that I think that people have to decipher. What is an expectation versus a need? The problem is that when you have an expectation and it's not talked about, there's no way that you can balance it. There's no way that you can actually have the conversation. Okay, well, is this an actual need? Can we work through it? I work late hours. How can I get home at this time? It has to work for your relationship, not just something that you've come up with in your head, and then now you bring it to your marriage, and then you wonder why it's not working in your marriage because you've never talked about it. And then there's an issue that you don't even realize you have because you don't really understand, like, okay, is this something that I need? Can I talk to them about it? Can we find balance? Why does this person have to do this? Where did that come from? Is that a negative thought that I've had all these years, I
also want to say this, because your question was talking about, have we encountered this conversation with other couples, and what have we done in those conversations? And I will say a couple things that we've noticed consistently with these conversations is this topic that is like a very critical topic is just either, number one, not being discussed at all. They're just bypassing it because it's too hard. And they know that. We've literally heard, I can't even tell you how many couples say, we choose not to have that conversation because we know it's going to be too hard for us and it may not be good for us.
Wow.
So they just bypass it and they sweep it under the rug until it actually becomes too much of an issue. Then they need to address it, but now they don't even know how to address it because there's too much built up.
Yeah.
The second piece is with the family dynamic, they're not quite sure, how do I make a choice? I think they ask that question a lot because I have to choose between my family and choose between my spouse. And we tell couples, specifically dating, we say before you get into this, you need to ask yourself, are you willing to let go of your family for your spouse? Because at the end of the day, you have to be willing to let that go if it gets down to it. If you're not willing to, then what you're telling me is you'd rather divorce than lose your family. You have to make a choice.
You know, one of the things that I say, and I'm not married, but, you know, when I enter into a monogamous relationship, that it's a bonus if my family likes her, but it's not a requirement.
That's period.
No, because if I like her and I'm digging her, you feel me? Like, until I'm no longer anymore, y'all can like her or not, I don't care.
You know, when Kevin and I started dating, we have 7 children, adult children between us. And they were all outraged. Like, what in the world are you doing? And they went on strike. And it was great because we got to spend a lot of time. They did. We got to spend a lot of really concentrated time together because nobody would come around us.
Wow.
And so, you know, what ended up happening is on my side and on each side, somehow they ended up having to spend time with us. And I'll never forget, Kevin's oldest daughter had hornets in her apartment. And so he went to kill the hornets, and they sprayed them, and then she needed a place to stay, so she stayed with us. And she and her son stayed with us. Now, her son was always, you know, Team Donna, but Mom was not. And so they stayed with us for a weekend, and at the end of the weekend, she sat down with her dad, and she said, I had no idea that this is what you were like. And she loved her father, liked him more now that he was with us, and really developed love for me because she could see that he was happy and that he was the kind of man that she wanted him to see. And likewise, you know, my kids came around because they saw it, but we were like, you know what?
And your friends. We
and my
saw
friends.
it. We all saw it.
Well, yes, my friends didn't go on strike, though. Well, some of them did. Some of them did.
Like,
some of them,
Donna.
you don't have time with me. But I think, you know, that sometimes you have to be willing to take a stand for yourself.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's part of it, because when the families are against it, they're not always against it for you. Sometimes it's because you're no longer what you were for them. And I think it's
And I got to
important.
let that go.
I've got to let that go, because sometimes we're carrying burdens we're not supposed to carry in our relationships.
Preach.
Where we can't put ourselves first. And so I love the fact that you've done that. Another thing that I really appreciate about your book is it doesn't tell people that the man is the king of the household and the woman teaching the woman how to be subservient to him. Because that kind of marriage advice would never, ever work for me. I wouldn't pick up the book, and it's like I rejected even just thinking about that concept, right? So can you talk about the fact that you've written a book that people can adapt to their own value system and how important that is? Because I think that's the most significant part of this book is most marriage books. Like when Orlando told me we were going to read a marriage guide, I was like, oh, no.
Here we go.
People can adapt it. So that's the question.
Yes.
Writing a book around people.
What's your
being
thought
able-
process? Yeah, your thought process around how you structure this book to give people their individuality inside of this.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of older generation gets a little upset about that, but we feel that we are teammates, like we work together. This is not just a, you know, one way, like you have a thought and then you don't ask me for anything. We just go and do it. I feel like you had something to say. That's why I was like, stop.
No, I just feel like we have lived our lives based on this thought that we want to share our experience. It's been a positive one. We've found a key to what unlocks a healthy relationship for us. But we've also experienced other healthy relationships that do it very differently than we do. And we just accepted the fact that, hey, we're not all alike, and that's beautiful, and that's okay. And in doing so, how do we write something where we can share our experiences? Because there's a lot that we've learned. There's a lot of key areas and key themes that we can help people understand. But the goal is we can give you these key principles to understand, but with that knowledge, apply it the way that you need to apply it yourself for your specific relationship. Because to identify your relationship with mine is not wise. It's not going to work.
All right, so we're coming up on the break. It's flew by, right?
It flew
So you guys
by.
are having an event. Tell us about the event and how people can show up and register.
It's October 19th. It'll be at the Studio Center in Farmington Hills. And we are doing a launch event. We'll have our books available, and we have some surprising things that we're not going to share that is available, that's going to be available at the event. And the goal is to talk about some of the topics. One of the things that we are talking about is the concept of happy wife, happy life. We do not agree with that. There are other conversations that we're talking about when it comes to just expectations, dreams and conflict. We're sharing why it is so hard for people to change. So we're excited to have the conversation. The goal is for us to sit down and talk. You guys ask questions. We're able to just feel like you're sitting on our couch, kind of like we do on our YouTube videos. So we're excited.
Go to our Instagram at __ the co-life_. Link in the bio is where you can get the tickets.
So you know what? You are inside of the Stoudemire Wellness Hub. And we've talked about bringing in people to also present to our community. Are you guys willing to come out and present to our community and maybe give them access to your book?
I would love that.
Absolutely. I would love that.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, stay tuned because I plan on doing this.
Okay. All right. I'm
We're
down.
excited.
Alexis and Brian Cole, thank you for coming on Authentically Detroit.
Thank you
Thank
both.
you.
We will be right back with Jerjuan Howard, Executive Director of the Umoja Debate League. Keep it locked.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the neighborhood tech hub, and more. Members who are residents of the east side have access to exclusive services in the Wellness Network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Welcome back to Authentically Detroit, everybody. We are live here at the Stoudemire inside of the Eastside Community Network headquarters, and we are excited to welcome back Jerjuan Howard. Welcome back to Authentically Detroit.
Man, I'm glad to be back.
We're happy to have you. I think the first time and the only time you were on, Donna was absent, so Donna gets to have this conversation
Yeah, I
with
think she
you.
wasn't feeling well or
Yeah, I
something
think
like
Donna was absent that day. But before we get into it, Umoja Debate League is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that uses debate as the vehicle to teach Detroit youth ages 11 through 18 transferable life skills such as critical thinking, confidence, conflict resolution, increased literacy, and self-expression. In August, Umoja Debate League proudly announced the successful conclusion of its 2024 trip to Ghana. 15 students from Henry Ford High School, Cass Tech High School, and Bates Academy, winners of the 2024 Championship Debate Tournament and the Zip Code Improvement Speech Competition, engaged in an enriching 8-day cultural immersion experience. The journey was an opportunity for students to connect with their lost heritage, broaden their global perspective, and build lasting memories. The experience enriched their understanding of African history and culture and strengthened their commitment to community leadership and Pan-African principles.
Oh, this could not come at a better time.
Not at a better time, especially with school board elections happening. We need to be having these conversations.
We do. And, we also need to really lean into the whole construct of Pan-African values and who we are and ideals because there's been a lot of messy people trying to tear us apart.
Yeah.
But I want to start by saying that my grandmother was a teacher at Mumford High School, and she took students to Africa every year.
Really?
She taught Spanish, French, and Swahili. And she took children on pilgrimages to Africa, and it changed their lives. And I think it also changed hers. So I was really excited to see you were doing this. I feel like when other teachers do that and recognize the importance of connecting children to their heritage. So can you talk about, first of all, how did you decide to do this?
So when we initially were planning out the 2024 season, we wanted a big prize. We wanted to do a trophy, of course, but these kids have dedicated so much time and energy to preparing for their debates and things like that. We wanted to give them something memorable. And me being myself and having these ideals that I carry and try to implement through my actions in the community, I feel like it was the perfect opportunity for us to expose them to that.
Oh. And how did you select the students? It sounds like they were students who had achieved the won competitions, and those
Yes.
that's how they selected. It was a prize.
Yep. So our debate season runs from January to June. Last year, it was 20 schools that competed, 10 middle schools and 10 high schools. We had monthly debate competitions, with June being our big championship tournament. And the winning schools from that big June tournament were the ones that won the trip to Africa. So Bates Academy was the middle school, and Henry Ford High School was the high school champion.
So talk about the cultural immersion experience. I mean, you were there for 8 days, a lot to take in, a lot to learn, a lot of exchanges with other students.
Yes.
How did it change you? Before I even ask you how it changed the students, how was that for you?
Man, I cried on the plane ride there.
Why? Why did you cry?
It just felt surreal. It felt surreal to be on the plane to Africa and Ghana at that. I did my 23andMe report, and I'm mostly Ghanaian Nigerian. I didn't know that until a couple months back, but it was just a beautiful experience, man. Again, I knew some of these ideals. I knew the connectivity that we had, but going there and seeing everything that's relevant to us is still relevant to them. A lot of our cultural norms that we have, they carried those same cultural norms. It was just a full-blown submersion. It was a beautiful
experience. So even
experience.
like the anticipation of it was making you emotional.
Yeah. I cried on that plane. I haven't cried in about 2 or 3 years, man.
You haven't cried in 2 years, 3 years, but you cried on the way to Africa.
Cried on the way to Africa.
Because it was a fulfillment of a dream. I mean, what?
Yes. I was proud of the team. I was really, really proud of the team. Just so everybody knows, the entire executive staff of Umoja is under 30. And so for us to pull off that trip, we took 15 kids from Detroit to Ghana. So I was proud of us for one. And again, I can't put it into words. It felt surreal. So the pride of it all, the submersion. And on the way there, I also learned a fact. KLM is the airline that we flew to from Amsterdam to Ghana. And that same airline, they used to make slave ships to go across the Atlantic. I didn't know that until I was on that airline. And so it was a weird thing that the same company that probably got my ancestors here is bringing me back.
Well, the wealth that was, attired and generated from that helped to feed into the creation of the airline. But then, I'm sure the families of the leaders are saying we're self-made.
We could talk about airlines. We could talk about insurance companies. We could talk about banks. All of it.
Colleges,
all of it.
Ivy League schools.
Yes.
So many of them made money off of that. So, but you went there and you said you're mostly Ghanaian. Now, interesting, because I found out I'm only like 5% or more so Nigerian, Cameroonian. But, you go there and you see people. Do you think these people look like me?
Yes.
I feel connected to them.
Yes.
Do you see family members in the people around you?
Yes. And now that I've been back here in Detroit, I can't turn off the switch. I see faces that are so similar to the faces that I've seen in Ghana. You can't
talk about that, because that has to be sort of like a spiritually transcendent kind of experience when you touch ground on that soil and see your family.
Yes, absolutely. We went to the local market there. That was one of the activities for the days. And I swear I seen some cousins from the personalities and everything else, man, from how they talk, their sense of humor, their joy in the midst of whatever was going on. I was like, man, this is how my cousins and some of my closest friends act and look.
Yeah.
It felt like home.
How did it change the students? Had any of them been on an airplane ride before? I mean, how did they come back? How did they experience?
So for most of them, I think everybody except for one student had never left the United States.
Wow.
And for some, that was their very first plane ride as well. And so every day we did a rose, bud, and thorn activity. The rose is something that you like. A bud was something you think could improve, and a thorn is something you're looking forward to for the next day. Every single day, most children didn't have any thorns. They loved the experience, everything about it, the full-blown submersion into the culture. They met friends there. We actually debated with some students at the Umoja Academy in Ghana. And that is the same school that Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, went to. So that is a school that we partnered with over there. And we didn't debate against them. We debated with them. So our debate style is a 2-on-2 format. One student from Umoja and one Ghanaian student against one student from Umoja and one Ghanaian student.
So it was really immersive and integrated.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the students speak English.
Yes.
Is English the primary language?
Nope, it's not the primary language. It was a couple different languages. Swahili was a big one, and I forget the other language that they spoke. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Well, that's okay. I was just wondering because these students are bilingual, trilingual, able to converse and debate in English.
Yep.
And that's, I think a lot of times when we think of students in African nations, we see them as being subpar or beneath us because maybe their schools don't look the same.
Yep.
But you're looking at students who can not only debate in
highly intelligent
native language, but they can debate in English. And I don't know many students who are taking say French or Spanish as a second language,
Right.
who are
Who are able to
debating
debate,
in those
yeah.
languages, which means the fluency is there.
Yeah. Did this trip challenge the worldview of the young people?
Absolutely.
As it relates to what their perception of African life would be?
Absolutely, especially the part with this debate. The debate topic that we gave the students was Detroit and Accra should strive to become sister cities. And that was intentional. So through the debate prep, the Ghanaian students learned about Detroit, the culture, the demographics, the economics, the education system, the whole nine. And Detroit students learned the exact same about Accra. And for one, they saw that, wow, there are a lot of similarities between the places that we call home. And they also saw how smart and intelligent the Ghanaian students were as well, because they were their partners and they went up against them. And so some Detroit students actually lost the debate to some of the Ghanaian students in their team. So it challenged their worldview. It opened their eyes. They all said that they had, again, these propaganda about whatever Africa is and what it isn't. But once they left that continent, they knew there was greatness there.
I wonder if the Ghanaian students also learned to walk away from some stereotypes, because how we are as Americans is also stereotyped
Yep.
in Ghana, right?
Yep.
We're all thugs. We're all unintelligent, uninterested in education. Here you are taking some brilliant kids from Detroit who come from not just Bates, but Henry Ford High School, which is not one of the testing schools,
Yeah.
which speaks to the fact that schools don't make you smarter just because you go here, and I'm excited about that. But do you think that the students and the adults who participated from Ghana came away with a changed attitude about the students who visited?
Yes, and they said it. They said it out of their mouths. When they researched Detroit, because they knew we were coming, and not the best things came up when they researched, from my understanding, when we talked to them. But once they left, they knew that we were smart. They knew about the pride of Detroit. They knew how strong we were. They knew the resilient culture that we have here. So the hard work, the ethic, all of those things, they literally said that as they went away. We're so happy that we met you all, and their
And they made
worldview.
lifelong friends that they'll
Yes,
keep in
they
touch
did.
with forever.
They did. That the school didn't allow them to have their phones during the week. So they were taking down everybody's Instagram names and phone numbers and emails as they left. But a lot of those connections
Lifelong
are still
connections.
there.
I
Yep,
know
they're still
there's
there.
probably a lot of teachers in Detroit who wish they could figure out how to keep school phones out of their students' hands
Right,
during the
right.
week, right?
Yeah.
That's so funny. Did you guys visit the point of no return? If so, what was that like? What was that like?
Yes, we did. So we visited the Elmina slave dungeon. They call it the slave castle, but it's a dungeon. And that was an emotional experience. Walking through the very tight rooms that our ancestors were in, and the students were with us. We made sure we didn't, protect them, if you will, from that experience. They got the full-blown experience, and it was very emotional, very, very emotional. Seeing the door, that the point of no return, in order to get through that door, you have to go through it sideways. If you were too big, they would starve you until you became slim enough to go through the door sideways. Where that means you were healthy enough to be shipped off to the Western Hemisphere. Again, just the whole entire experience, it made me emotional. We had a couple of people that cried and things like that there, the students. But I think it was a very, very necessary part of the trip. One of the most important, in my opinion.
So what are the students going to do with this new knowledge?
Yeah.
What's next for them? What's next for you in terms of sharing the trip? Do you have pictures, a slideshow, anything?
You got a
Absolutely.
whole report.
Yeah. We have a full-blown Ghana report.
I'll send it to
talks
you.
about, each day, what we did, who we were with, photos, videos attached to it. And my goal, again, we're not trying to force it on them necessarily, but it was embedded through the whole process, Pan-Africanism. We are the same. Build these ties, education-wise, economic-wise. So that was my intent with the trip, and hopefully that I planted some seeds in the minds of our students and their students that these bonds will be built, for decades to come.
I would love to have you
ode
come
to the
here.
name, unity, Umoja.
Yes, I'd love to have you come here and talk to our students. I think maybe even inviting them out as speakers to share with other people, because part of learning is also teaching.
Yep.
And as they teach what they learned, perhaps they'll reflect on it even more fully. So I'd love to connect you.
Let's do it.
I'm working with other organizations that serve young people. I just hate to lose the opportunity to build, because there are so many threats to that right now. There's so many people who are trying to politicize in social media the difference between Black Americans and people in other parts of the diaspora, especially during this election season. And yet you during this time actually did the opposite, and you showed people how we connect.
Yeah.
It's super important.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
What's next?
What's next for Umoja? Well, tomorrow we're getting the Spirit of Detroit Award at 10 a.m.
So that's Wednesday,
Yep.
October the 8th.
No, Tuesday.
Tuesday, October the 8th.
This,
Yeah, I just needed to go ahead, keep going.
Yeah.
I just needed to do the time because people will get this tomorrow.
Absolutely. Our debate season is going to be starting up again in January. We're looking at 30 schools this year being a part of it. We host debate tournaments one Saturday out the month. If you follow our Instagram at Umoja Debate League or on Facebook, Umoja Debate League, or our website, you can sign up for our newsletter list. You'll receive updates about when you can come out and publicly view the kids debate against each other.
so is Southeastern one of the schools?
Southeastern was not one of the schools last year, but we're open to being one of the schools.
All right.
We open?
You got Donna Givers Davidson on your team. Call it done. Call it
I
done.
mean, we definitely want
Yeah.
Southeastern. We have some wonderful young people. Actually,
Some
some of
amazing
Peralta Youth Voices,
for
and
a
maybe
teen
Orlando.
podcast.
Maybe they can meet the Umoja students who went to, because we have 4 young people
Really?
who are learning to be podcasters. Maybe they can interview your youth
That would be perfect.
at a podcast.
I want to do more of that too. Giving youth opportunities to collaborate across many different sectors. So, okay, these kids are debating, but these kids are the ones that's covering the whole entire debate
love it.
process. You know,
Yeah, we jumped right into the trip, but I do want you to have an opportunity to tell people about the wonderful, amazing work that you're doing and some of the recognitions that you've gotten this year.
Okay, I can do that. Well, first, earlier this year, I bought a building. I grew up on the west side of Detroit, Puritan and Schaefer area. And I'm opening up a bookstore 6 blocks away from my childhood house. I bought a building that sat vacant for about 20 years. And now we're in the process of making that into a bookstore. That is expected to be opened up in the spring of 2025. I received the Skillman Visionary Award earlier this year. As mentioned, we are getting the Spirit of Detroit Award. Black Detroit honored me as a community change maker. Black Male Educators Alliance honored me as a community change maker. But it's really about the work. And I also want to give a huge shout out to the team that I have. Again, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but no one is over the age of 30. And that is extremely important because it gives a nod to what happens once we invest into the young minds of Detroit. We come back and we implement solutions here in this city that we call home. So this year has been amazing for me, but it wouldn't have been possible without the team.
All right.
Yeah.
How many people are on your team?
So for the executive staff, we have 6. We have Jada Morgan, we have myself, we have Brandon Harrison, Taylor James, Leah Webb, and Ari Hemphill.
Wow, you are an amazing leader, and it is so exciting. I'm sorry I missed you the first time. I'm really glad to see you and to hear more about your work. We need more of you, and the work you're doing will bring, as you pointed out, the young people back.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for coming on, Jerjuan.
Thank you for having me, as always.
As always, listen, if you have topics that you want discussed on the podcast, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. All right, it's time for shout-outs. Let's start with you, Donna.
I would like to shout out Yodit Mesvin Johnson.
Yeah, she had an
for
event this past weekend.
She is actually curating an art exhibit. I don't know the exact name of the exhibit, but she's curating this art exhibit in Ann Arbor at, I believe, the University of Michigan School of Arts. And here you have a nonprofit leader who leans into her creative...
Celebrating the Spelman Art Collection. Black Art is Divine, a family-centered celebration of Black art culture and HBCUs. Curated by Yodit Mesvin Johnson.
Yes, and I think this is just one of many exhibits that she's going to curate. And so when I see people leaning into their skill sets in other realms, it just is so encouraging. And she's such a brilliant leader. So we have to get her on to talk about that. But I want to shout her out.
Absolutely. Jerjuan, do you have shout outs?
I do have one shout out. Mr. Thomas of Dexter Barbershop on Puritan and LaShore. He's been in business he's had that building since 1970. He's seen the community change. He stayed present as a staple in that community. And so big shout out to Mr. Thomas. We're interviewing him as part of the bookstore rollout. We're talking to people who've been in the community for so long. And why haven't you left? Why have you seen things have changed? So huge shout out to Mr. Thomas and that whole entire Dexter Barbershop.
All right, y'all. Well, we thank you so... Oh, I do have a shout out. Do I? Do I have a shout out? I never really do the shout. Shout out to Local 4. It was fun being back on the air this morning. We had a good time. It was a good time. And it's a brand new set. and new fun things to do around there. It was cool. So shout out to the entire producing staff at Local 4 Live in the D. It's always fun coming on and playing with you guys. And my friend Tati, she's an amazing, amazing host. All right, y'all, we thank you so much for listening. And until next time, love on somebody and allow yourself to be loved on. We'll see you soon.